Here we go. We'll just wait a moment here for 2 o'clock to hit for some people to file in. All right, so hello and welcome to everyone to today's webinar. Before I hand it off to our moderator, I just want to cover a few quick technical logistics about interaction. Your microphones and your cameras are disabled by default, so you don't have to worry about being seen or heard. So if you do have a question or if you have anything that you want to say directly to the panelists, please use the Q&A function of the Zoom webinar dashboard towards the bottom. That way it'll make it much easier for us to manage what's been asked and what's been answered so that we can get through everything in a timely and organized manner. For everything else like discussion, technical issues, just commentary in general, please use the chat function. When you enter in the chat function, it's going to default to all panelists. So if you want everyone to see your comment, just make sure that you select all panelists and attendees. That one, your name will be displayed, but if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can do so within the Q&A feature. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to Melanie Gottlieb, our moderator.
Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Gottlieb, Deputy Director of AACRAO, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar previewing the new and improved AACRAO EDGE database. It's a pleasure to be online with all of you today as we continue in our teleworking our way through the COVID-19 crisis. Next slide. With me today is Jasmine Saidi-Kunaut, Chair of AACRAO International Education Standards Council, or IESC, and founder, president, and CEO of Academic Credential Evaluation Institute, and also Drew Carlisle, AACRAO Assistant Director of EDGE Development. Next slide. So here's our agenda for today. Jasmine will share EDGE content updates in the review process, and Drew will give us a preview of EDGE 3.0, and I'll talk about the product launch and development timeline, and then we'll move to your questions. As always, we're hopeful that our technology will not fail us. This is a fairly large Zoom call, and all of us are working at the mercy of our home Wi-Fi. Good luck to everyone. I hope it all holds stable for us. Before we turn to our panelists, I'd like to find out who's in the audience. And so I'm going to ask Michael Sisson to add a poll. So if you could please answer these couple of poll questions so that we know who we have here. Are you an educational institution? Are you in the US? Are you an EDGE subscriber? We would love to hear who we have with us today. We'll give folks another minute or two. Michael, you can let me know when you think enough people have answered the poll.
Sure thing. I'll give it another 30 seconds because we're already at 85% voting.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right, 10 seconds.
I do see a couple of questions, and I will just let folks know who are on the call that we will share the slides at the end of the presentation. They will be accessible. And so, great, it looks like 90% of the folks who are on the call today work at an educational institution and are based in the US and are an EDGE subscriber. We've got a few non-subscribers and a few outside the US folks, and so welcome. We're glad to have you here today. So now I'll turn the mic over to Jasmine, who will talk about the EDGE content updates in the review process.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for inviting me to today's webinar. And good day, good afternoon to all our attendees. It's my pleasure to be here with you today as chair of the International Education Standards Council that oversees the country profiles and credential advice which you find in EDGE. As someone who's been in the field of international education for a few decades, I've seen our field grow and with it, the resources that give it the life it needs to remain relevant and sustainable. By resources, I don't mean only financial, but human intellectual capital that have led to making information not only available in print, but also digitally. I'd like to share a very brief history of how EDGE was created for those of you who may not be familiar with the history and the origin story. So up until 2002, we had in our field a research and development endeavor that existed between AACRAO and NAFSA. The endeavor of these two associations was known as the Projects for International Education Research, PEER, which engaged in research on world education systems by organizing and sponsoring teams who visited countries and collected information on education systems and prepared reports that were later published. The credential advice recommended in those publications were reviewed and voted on by a body known as the National Council on the Evaluation of Foreign Educational Credentials. We used to refer to it as the Council. In 2002, this joint agreement between NAFSA and AACRAO was dissolved. The AACRAO board at the time, at the advice of Mrs. Gloria Nathanson, who served as vice president, established the International Evaluation Standards Council, IESC, in case the council, the one that was dealing with the peer workshops, disbanded, which it did in 2006. The EDGE project, the electronic database on global education, began in 2004 and was completed in 2009. And one of the founders of EDGE is Dr. William Paver, formerly with University of Texas, Austin, who is now president of Foreign Credential Evaluation Services in Austin. The software development of EDGE at the time was overseen by Dr. Paver with funding from the Paver Family Foundation. The IESC, as you can see from the image on the slide, is a representation of individuals who've been in this field for several decades and have hands-on experience in international education and admissions. This is a voluntary group of experienced professionals who are very knowledgeable on world education systems and credential evaluations. Our representation is equally divided between institutions of higher education as well as credential evaluation firms. All of our members on the IESC have authored country profiles, been part of research projects that culminated in publications sponsored by AACRAO and NAFSA. And many of us even participated in the Projects for International Education Research endeavor that used to exist. So you can be confident that the recommendations presented in EDGE are carefully vetted, discussed even more, and represent the varied viewpoints held within higher ed. The grading scales and credential advice published within AACRAO EDGE represent a majority consensus amongst the IESC. May we please go to the next slide? I'm sorry, we should have stayed on the previous slide because I do want to give due respect to the IESC members. Sorry about that. I just wanted to give a shout out to the individuals who serve with me on the council. We have Nancy Katz, who is with the Evaluation Service in Chicago. We have Jennifer Mink with Texas A&M University in Kingsville. Johnny Johnson, who retired with Monterey Peninsula College. Robert Watkins, who is with UT Austin. Emily Say with IERF, Bill Paver, FCSA, and yours truly. We also have AACRAO staff, notably Drew Carlisle, Ann Koenig, and Melanie Gottlieb, who attend our meetings and help us with invaluable research and offer their insights and expertise. And finally, each year, IESC selects 2 of AACRAO's rising stars to serve as fellows and carry out a research project that's relevant to EDGE. Our fellows for 2020 are Loida Utley with Texas A&M University and Rosalie Hancock with Bellevue College. And one of our past fellows, Amanda Holder, who's with Indiana University Purdue, continues to offer her time as a volunteer. So how does IESC approach changes to EDGE? This is how we do it. So when education standards change, new credentials are awarded, or foreign education systems are reorganized, AACRAO EDGE utilizes the expertise of the IASC to review and update the recommendations. And the credential advice is modified with new studies of foreign countries' education systems, and it's based on research that we collect, and we develop these recommendations. As I said earlier, we review, we discuss, we vet, and we reach a consensus. And then this data is then presented to EDGE for posting. For the interest of time, I won't be going through the long list of updates we've made to EDGE in recent months, but I've selected as examples 4 countries which have had new credentials added. Under the country of Burundi, we discovered that there's a new introduction of the 3-tiered system similar to the Bologna compliant degrees in Europe. And this is the baccalaureate, a 3-year program at the undergraduate level requiring 180 ECTS credits, followed by a 2-year master's requiring 120 ECTS, and the doctoral, a 3-year degree program. These 3 credentials have been added to the country of Burundi. Pakistan and Australia, we discovered, have introduced a Doctor of Physiotherapy. In Pakistan, this is a 5-year post-secondary, so this information was added, and the credential advice also included. The same for Australia, that has introduced the Doctor of Physiotherapy, a 3-year degree following the 3-year ordinary bachelor degree. We also had the inclusion of the Diploma of General Nursing and Midwifery in India, a 3.5-year post-secondary professional program that trains individuals to be nurse midwives. So these are the sort of things that we deal with. Sometimes this information comes to us by subscribers who bring to our attention that a particular credential may have been changed, or there's something new happening. Many of us keep our ears and eyes to the ground, and we read and go through news sources and stay alert and updated on what's going on around the world. So this is a collaborative effort of information sharing. And once we have this information, the members of the council each take on the responsibility of diving deeper into doing the research and coming back with their findings and presenting it to the rest of us for review. The next slide, please. We've also been very busy with assigning country profile updates by selecting authors, and happy to report that we've made some great progress this year. We have the following countries that are ready to be reviewed and then made available for subscribers viewing and AACRAO members. The country of Macedonia will be receiving a full country profile in the EDGE database, and the author is Alex Popovsky with UCredo. He has just broken all sound barriers and presented his report to us right under the deadline hour, and it was just really remarkable work he's done. So we're looking forward to reviewing his report. Cuba, Janine Nicole Pacheco from University of New Mexico has prepared the country profile. We have 2 fellows that I mentioned, Loida and Rosalie, that were given the responsibility of doing research on the offshore medical schools in the Caribbean, and they've prepared a very comprehensive, detailed list of these institutions with information on their various accreditation status. And then finally, on France, we prepared a white paper on the Grand, excuse me, on the Grand Écoles of Business and Engineering, and the authors of the white paper are Robert Watkins and Emily Tsay, 2 members of our council. We also have a few countries that are works in progress. This would be Russia, Mexico, and Palestine. And the authors of which respectively are Alexandra Agafonov, Barbara Glave, and Hani Arafat. So we're looking forward to seeing those reports soon. As you can see, members of the ISC are a tirelessly dedicated bunch, and we've been plugging away even during moments of crisis such as those we're going through today. We haven't missed a beat, And we continue to have our bi-weekly meetings where we review our very robust agenda. We do the research and the fact-checking to bring to you peer-reviewed and improved credential advice and information that you and your institutions can rely on. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Jasmine. Next slide. Before Drew does a product demo, I want to talk a little bit about EDGE. Launched in 2004 with the generous support of the Paver Family Foundation. Since then, the placement recommendations in EDGE have been adopted by more than 500 institutions, more than 40 corporations and law firms, and USCIS. When I joined the AACRAO staff 5 years ago, the expansion and updating of EDGE was a major priority of mine. We hired a full-time staff member to support the product, expanded membership of the IESC to include a more broad representation of the US-based profession, and became actively engaged with the Enoch-NARIC network and other ministries abroad. At the same time, we began discussions on the next version of the product with a long wish list that has evolved from focus groups, surveys, and other engagements with our users at AACRAO International Institutes and training programs. And you can see the look and feel of the product. In 2004, we launched the product, and while the content continued to evolve, the look and feel did not change at all until 2018. And then now we're about ready to launch the new version in 2020, and it's really exciting. Next slide. So last year, planning for EDGE 3.0 really began in earnest. And the new product, which will launch by the end of the month, includes a new interface with responsive design, country overviews that will be open to non-subscribers, new Connect News and event integration, new integrated account management features, personal account bookmarks, country updates alerts, emergent news alerts, and a new credential search functionality. And so all of these came from user feedback, and we even have more things that we'll do in the future. But for now, I'd like to turn the mic over to Drew, who's going to give you a live product demo of the new EDGE 3.0.
Hey, thank you so much, Melanie. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this screen here to show all of you what I'm looking at. All right, you should be able to see the new homepage for the new AACRAO EDGE that will be debuting later this month, as Melanie mentioned. I'm really excited to get to share all of these new developments and new features with all of you that joined us today. From gathering data and polling our users, we are confident that these are the features that will improve your day-to-day usage of AACRAO EDGE. So let's talk about them. Melanie mentioned that there's a new interface, there's a responsive design. We know that some users want to be able to use a tablet. We know that some of you only work at your desktop computer. Some prefer the flexibility of working on a laptop, and they need all of their tools to have mobile functionality. We heard all of you. The new EDGE is going to respond dynamically to the device and to the orientation so that you can work how you work best. I'm going to show you just a little bit here that this new design is responsive. Imagine that you are on your mobile device right now or a tablet. As you make the windows smaller and smaller, all of your options actually get consolidated here into this section menu. You'll be able to access all the overview, credentials, splatters, everything right from within this responsive view. So it's a tool that's really easily integrated into your workflow and into your own personal work style. And the mobile functionality really makes it easy for you when you need to look up something quickly on the go, when you need to just reference something and need that right at hand. Well, all the researchers that work and contribute on AACRAO EDGE, they paint a robust picture of how an educational system is actually, they paint a robust picture of how an educational system functions by detailing the grading practices in system and explaining the progression of a student and the typical benchmark credentials they would earn. But It's really within these overviews that the context is laid out that is required for a deeper and historical understanding of these educational systems. These overviews, as Melanie mentioned, will be open and available to all individuals, not only those who subscribe to AACRAO EDGE. Now, you will need a subscription to access all of the items contained within EDGE, the credentials, the ladders, the grading scales. Those are retained for subscribers. And you can see down in the lower left-hand corner, there is a key that will indicate that that is locked content if you are not logged in. So that's a good time to mention this archive country study. As long as we're here, let me show you this value that's added here. These archive country studies, they provide a snapshot in time of a given system and are quite valuable when evaluating non-current credentials. So here's one that we have for Jamaica. Well, it's not actually just for Jamaica, it's for the entire Commonwealth Caribbean. And you can always Control F to search for whatever you might need to find. Of course, it's not going to work for me at this moment. I apologize. But you've got, they are searchable PDFs that are downloaded and contained within throughout AACRAO EDGE. We have them for many countries. Let's go back and talk about a little bit more of the integration with AACRAO EDGE and the rest of AACRAO. We've designed it to make sure that you're better aware of events and connect articles which would be of interest to you. If you scroll down at the bottom of the homepage, there's now going to be a sliding list of options that have all recent articles from AACRAO Connect sorted with an international focus that might be right up your alley. We'll also be highlighting and alerting you to new trainings that are available, and we'll inform you about free webinars such as this. We're keeping all this at the bottom of the pages, not just on the home page, but integrated throughout the website so that you can keep track of what AACRAO is offering without adding any more onto your plate. So let's see. Speaking of adding a little bit more onto your plate, would you like another set of login codes to remember or forget or reset? We know. We're simplifying things for you at AACRAO. So we've rolled AACRAO logins and AACRAO EDGE logins all into one single integrated, simple sign-on. Current members of AACRAO that subscribe to EDGE will be able to use that same login to access all the EDGE content and all AACRAO content moving forward. If you haven't been an AACRAO member in the past, there will be one quick step to set up a free AACRAO account, and you'll be right back into your subscription after that. Don't worry, we're happy to help you with all of it, and it shouldn't take more than a minute. Now, the other thing, we know that not everyone uses AACRAO EDGE in the same way. Some individuals are responsible for evaluating credentials from any and all systems, while other people are more specialized in their systems of expertise. And whichever more accurately describes you and how you work, EDGE's new account management options will help you out. Let's go in, let's look at a little bit of these. We're now offering the ability to bookmark individual countries. You can see it here in the top right-hand corner above the map. So I've selected Jamaica, and if you go in to where you're going to manage your account, here under my bookmarks, you can see I've selected a few of these that you can look through. But let's talk a little bit more about Jamaica specifically. If I were to go into that bookmark, you see that I can select where I want to go in the profile from this bookmark specifically. I also have access to all of the latest country updates and any emergent news items. So these are actually the parts of the profile that I'm really excited, the parts of the bookmark that I'm really excited to share with you. So emergent news here, it's a collection of current events that will impact credentials or how we understand them in some fashion. It may be an explanation about a natural disaster that's having specific impacts on students being able to obtain their documentation. It may describe delays in processing exams. And in light of the tremendous impact that COVID-19 is having all across the world, These news items are certainly going to include practices that are relevant and unique for the current educational cycle. For example, are certain countries advancing all students without typical final examinations? Is that something that would be valuable when you're evaluating that student's credentials? We think so, and it's something you'd be able to find out by reviewing these emergent news items. Now you'll also see that we have listed some content updates, some country updates. These are going to be things that we really want to emphasize and highlight for you. We're not going to be telling you every time we add in a new comma, but when we do have something that's worthwhile, that needs to be mentioned, it'll be brought here onto these country updates. New credentials, new ladders, new grading advice, new resources, all of that can be found here. And even though we love this new feature, we don't want you to have to bookmark to find out what's been updated. If you go back to the homepage, right underneath the main map when you log in, you'll see a scrolling bar that you can look through from left to right with all of the new updates and emergent news items as well. Those are going to go back in time and you'll be able to reference them as you need to, but they'll always be kept on the same page of the profile itself. Well, I suppose the final thing that I really want to highlight for everyone is our new search feature. When you're going through and you're looking at specific countries and specific credentials, used to be in the previous iteration of EDGE, the credentials were organized by education level, but one needed to turn from page to page of credentials to find one in particular. Now, you're going to be able to type it directly into the search box. And as you type, this long list of credentials is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter, leaving you with what you're trying to find. We hope this is going to be more functional for you when you're looking for a particular credential and you need that targeted information to be able to drill down and see a little bit more about it. I think that's a pretty good review of a lot of these new features. Melanie, I'm going to send this back over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Drew. And Mike, if you can get us back to the PowerPoint. I'll tell you, I can't wait for this product to launch later this month. It's been something we've been working on for a very long time. And now that we've invested in a new platform for EDGE, we can much more easily plan for future development. And that's actually the thing I am most excited about. We have made a commitment to continuing to develop the product to meet future needs and have a pretty long wish list for the future. For now, I can share with you what we have planned coming over the next 18 months as soon as we launch. So in the last quarter of 2020, we plan to have an improved glossary feature. We're working on new ladders. So in the first quarter of 2021, we intend to have a brand new visual representation of education systems. We're currently working on it, and once we have them all finished, we'll roll them all out. We will have more sample documents. You might not have noticed, I'm not sure, but this past summer, we added more than 400 new sample documents. And once the product has launched, we'll begin to process and gather and index even more sample documents. So you can expect to see another bulk by next summer at the latest. And lastly, on our timeline, in the last quarter of 2021, we are committed to making the site AA grade accessible. And this is really in accordance with AACRAO's overall commitment to inclusion, and we're diligently working to make AACRAO more accessible. We've made tremendous improvements with this update and expect to be fully AA accessible by the last quarter of 2021. So that is where we are with EDGE, and I see lots of questions. And so I'm going to move to the Q&A section of this presentation. And so as a reminder, please type your questions in the Q&A section tab in the webinar dashboard. And I'm going to go through and I'll probably answer some, and I will ask our colleagues to answer some others. So we talked about, I have one question about updating sample documents, and so we did talk about that. Here's a question: how often do you plan to update links to ministries and university listings? Sometimes people find that there isn't a link or the link isn't working. And I can begin to address that and tell you that we've done quite a bit of work just in the last year and a half in terms of really updating ministry links and also making connections on a personal edge level to ministries. One challenge that we do find we have sometimes is sometimes a link doesn't work because something has changed just recently, just in terms of where the website is located. We have employed a couple of technical aspects to try to do link checking, but we find that it catches things too often. Sometimes if a website is just down for 24 hours or for an hour, a link checker catches it. So what I can tell you is that we're working very hard to ensure the links will be up to date. We have employed a new feature in which we didn't show you, but it is in the system, is that on every page there is the ability to submit an update right on that page. And so if you find something that is not working, it will be very easy for you to let us know that something is amiss or that you think something should be included. In the current version of Edge, you have to go several pages in and go to that individual place, and then we've got to figure out where it was you were talking about. And so this is going to be much, much more responsive. I think it will help us keep the site even more up to date. I have a question here, and I'm going to ask Jasmine to talk a little bit about this. Question is, do your credential evaluations fall in line more with ECE or with WES? For example, WES states that a 3-year degree in India is equivalent to a US 4-year degree. ECE states it must be a 4-year degree to be equivalent. I would love for Jasmine to maybe talk a little bit about that.
I will be happy to. Well, if you all recall earlier, I mentioned the National Council on the Evaluation of Foreign Educational Credentials. This is the body that existed until 2006. The standards that the IAC follows pretty much mirror those of the council. And going by that council, the standards are that we mirror the educational credential that we are assessing for EDGE against the US system, and we do it pretty closely. So if we are looking at a bachelor's degree program in the United States, an undergraduate degree program, we measure it against that. So if our US bachelor's degree is a 4-year program of full-time study after secondary education, we match the credential advice as close as we can to that. So the placement recommendations are pretty standard as it was, let's say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, as to what the National Council had recommended. And we have not ventured away from that. So to some, it may seem a little conservative, but the credential advice also does indicate the duration of the program. So if a degree program in one country is 3 years, that information is on EDGE, allowing you as the representative of your institution to apply that to the standards that you have. If you exercise more of an open admission policy, you may wish to consider a 3-year program as comparable to your bachelor or for admission to a graduate program. But EDGE itself sticks to the pretty straightforward standard of US degrees, 4 years for a bachelor, and therefore that's how we measure the non-US credentials.
Thank you, Jasmine. And can I add something to that?
Of course. Of course.
I'd like to reiterate the last point that that Jasmine made in that, and clarify something. So in EDGE, we don't have evaluations. We have placement recommendations, and we have information for you to make a decision within the context of the admission type, the admission standards that your institution uses, and the selectivity standards that your institution uses. And so we have institutional users at all spectrums of highly selective to open who use EDGE. And so we can't determine at AACRAO exactly what you should do with the credential. What we can do is give you some advice in terms of how we think it is comparable. And then it's up to you to make a decision that fits best for your institution. And you might make that decision by considering how many academic supports you have at your institution, whether that student is going to be successful at your institution, what the level of competition is for those spots at your institution. And so admissions decisions are made in such a rich context that is highly specific to an institution, and EDGE is a tool to help you make those decisions. And let's see, I'm gonna keep going. Here is I'm gonna answer this question. Will credit equivalencies be included? I'm often looking for credit conversions to US standards and have a difficult time finding credit scales. I will tell you right now, it's not in the current product timeline, say in the next 18 months, but tools to help admissions and credential evaluators folks do credit transfer is definitely something that is on my wish list. I don't know how far we'll be able to go in that, but we do lots of training at AACRAO in order to teach you how to do that. And our intention is to add some of those tools into EDGE, but I think we're probably 2 years out from having that particular set of information in EDGE. Let's see. Here's a question, and I'm going to let Drew answer this question. It says, it looks like there's no longer an institution tab. Is that information located in another area? Drew, would you like to answer that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Melanie. So we have eliminated the institutions tab, but we've not eliminated that information. What we're doing, and we've been doing it in EDGE for a while, you may have noticed, we're pushing people more to the consolidated, quote, resources page. And within that resources page, there is going to be a drop-down accordion that will have lists of institutions. Now, we're not going to have lists of institutions for all countries. If there is a list of those institutions that is maintained by an appropriate body or an appropriate ministry, it is our opinion that it is true that the best way to verify the recognition status would be to check those lists that are maintained by the bodies in country. So for countries that we do not have verifiable information, we will continue to maintain a list of institutions. Remember, that is only as accurate as it was at some point in the past. But for everything else, we will have links that go directly to where the ministry or the body is holding on to those. So still there, it's just moving around just a little bit. And for those of you that are using EDGE presently, be sure to check the resources tab before you go to the institutions tab. The resources tab will have lists of institutions as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Drew. The next question I'm going to ask, and I will also ask Drew, what will a non-subscriber not be able to see? So what's basically behind the paywall for EDGE?
So let's see. Behind the paywall, you're going to have a listing of all of the credentials. That includes all of our information about the credential, placement recommendations for that, the the credential that is required to access that program, your entry requirement, so to speak, what that credential will lead to. Let's see, also locked behind the wall, there's going to be grading scales at the secondary and post-secondary levels. There's going to be all of the resources that we've been talking about. We have lists of online resources and print resources. The links to the various ministries and recognition bodies, to the national information centers, all of that is going to be back behind the wall. Glossaries, which you'll be able to use for a little bit more understanding of some country-specific terms. That's going to be behind the wall as well. And what am I missing right now? The ladders, one of the big projects that we have coming up. That is something that will not be available unless you are a subscriber to Edge.
Okay, thanks so much, Drew. Here's another question. I'm going to toss this to you as well, Drew. If we find a credential that's not already in Edge, is there a way that we can submit a request to have it be added?
Absolutely. As Melanie mentioned, we have integrated onto each page in the new Edge the ability to reach out and contact us. Now, if you do reach out with that information, the more information you can provide to us, the faster we're going to be able to verify that research and to get all that information published and pushed out for you. So if you find something that's not in Edge, we would love to hear from you. Please let us know that is lacking, and because we do want to get that in there as quickly as possible. Reach out using that Contact Us button, and you'll be able to follow the quick little prompts that give us enough information to get started on that. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Here's a question, and we can talk a little bit about it. Will subscribers receive emailed notifications if a country profile is updated, or are the updates only listed on the website? I can, maybe Drew, I'll let you answer this, and then I'll add a little context if we need some more.
Yeah. Well, so all of the updates, we were planning on keeping them within Edge. We were going to have it both on each individual country page. When you're going through the database, you'll be able to go to the overview page and see a listing of what the updates were. You won't be able to drill down and see the details about what specifically was updated on a credential unless you're a subscriber. But even non-subscribers would be able to see that we've introduced a new credential, that we've introduced a new grading scale, and all that will be on those individual country profiles. Or again, you can look at those new bookmarks and look at the countries that you try to keep most on top of, and you'll be able to see it there as well.
That's excellent. And I want to point out that this is actually a feature that we really talked for a long time about. And it will be interesting to see if subscribers want more notification than they get in this new version. It is possible to add on a technical basis, to add things like RSS feeds or push updates. But we decided initially that we would start with this bookmarked updates, and then we'll poll users, we'll see how that goes. And if users want even more notification, that is something that we can add to the product timeline in the future. So we really want to grow and develop the product in response to our users. And so I hope that you will continue to give us feedback as you use the new product so that we can add the right things to the product timeline. All right, let's see. A comment, and it's upvoted 11 times, so it's not really a question, but I'm going to toss it over to Drew because I think he'll have something to say about it. It says, it would be great to also capture and share e-verify resources for each country in the database. Drew, do you want to talk about electronic verification?
Sherry, I completely agree with you that is going to be an incredibly valuable thing to make its way into this database. It's current, it's appropriate, it's needed. That already is something that we've begun the research on, and we do want to get that in there for you as quickly as we can. So I agree.
And Drew, I would say some of the E-Verify resources are listed, but it's probably not yet comprehensive. Is that correct?
That would be the best way to describe it. It's not yet comprehensive, and we haven't separated it out into those key resources the way that we really want to, so that we can highlight that for you. What we have attempted to do, and you've probably noticed over the last couple of years, is we've tried to organize resources in a way that when you have something on your desk looking at a specific credential, we're trying to highlight those resources and separate them out, because we know that's what you're going to need first. So there are some of those electronic verification resources that are in EDGE presently. You'll just need to review through the online resources right now.
Thank you. Yes, and I will add to that in the new EDGE, if you have an e-verification resource that is not included, you will be able to submit an update right from that page. Click submit an update, say, hey, this is the link, you can verify here. We will check it out, and if it checks out, we will get it added to the page. So absolutely, this is something that, especially now in these times, it's become more and more crucial, and more institutions are providing those. Okay, so here's a good question. FAQs seem new. What sort of things will we typically see there?
Melanie, mind if I jump in on this one?
I don't mind at all.
So the FAQs, what we were thinking behind that, right now, you have an opportunity, you have an option to write in with specific questions about the recommendations that we have placed in EDGE, that the IESC has come up with. You can write to us if there's any questions that you have about it. And we find that sometimes the same questions will keep on coming up. And we were trying to think of a way to harness that information, so that, because if one person asks it, we know that there's at least 4 other people that are thinking it. And so going into these specialized country FAQs are going to be things that people consistently come and ask about: India, about China, about Saudi Arabia, about Canada, whatever those things are. And it's a brand new feature, so we're going to be developing it over time. We've mentioned a couple times about reaching out to us. One of the things that we really have tried to do with this new database, with this new rollout, is to provide you the opportunity to directly interact with us, because we want to share all of this information. So reach out with your questions, and it will help inform what needs to go into that database.
Thanks, Drew. So here is another question. There it is. Do you have an email or channel of communications for members to contact you in case we can't find accreditation for an institution, or if we have questions about the tools on the site? Drew, would you like to answer that?
Certainly. So the best way that you can reach out to us is the edge@acro.org is the best email address. It's usually going to be me that's checking that in the first place. But any questions that you have can be directed to edge@acro.org. Now, if you can't find the accreditation or recognition status of a particular school, that is not something that I am going to be able to help you with when you reach out. I would suggest you reach back out to the school in question, because they're going to have the information on where they're recognized and who holds that accreditation. It's going to be something that, if I have a resource available, I would go ahead and I would push that onto the website to make sure that all of you could see that.
Excellent. Thank you, Drew. Let's see. It looks like we still have a few more minutes. We have quite a few Q&A, so I'm working my way through. I just want to let folks know that we're going to continue through. We will end at 3, and if we don't get them all, we will absolutely try to answer as many questions as we can. So here is a question that we can talk about. How many staff persons are covered under a membership? For example, I have a login, but I have 3 other members on my team. Would they each need to pay for a membership, or can there be more than one user? So maybe I will start with this. I'll answer this one. I'll preface this by saying that AACRAO EDGE has had the same subscription model with the same number of users per subscription for the entire 15 years that it's been in existence. And so we are working in this new upgrade, we have made a number of changes that will be rolling out, and you'll get some specific information about it. So we will have a new subscription cost. It is going to go up just a small amount, but you're going to get a lot more for your subscription. And so institutional members, instead of having only 2 users per institution, the base price will offer 10 users per institution subscription. And that cost is going to go up from $495 to $600. But that gives you 10 users. So I think that's going to work out quite well for an institutional member. You'll be able to expand to a lot more of your staff. I think it will also help. One of the things that we talk about all the time in our trainings is that the policies, the information that's contained in EDGE often helps develop sort of admission and transfer and placement policies. And there are more people in the institution who really need to have that information. Perhaps you have a faculty department who needs to be able to access information because they're making admission decisions in their department that perhaps as an evaluator, you wish that they would do something different. You might have study abroad programs who are making decisions and not necessarily vetting institutions in the way that you might recommend as a best practice. And so by opening up the institutional subscription to 10 users, it will allow you to have a much more thorough and consistent institutional policy and practice. And so we are excited about it. Yes, it is going up, but it is going up just a very small amount. It is the first time it's gone up in 15 years. So I'm confident that you'll see the value. Let's see. I am looking to see. I have a comment and a question. It says, I love the upgrades. Thank you. Will you be hosting a how-to after you publish the upgrade? Drew, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about the video user guides and some of those plans?
Absolutely. So what we were thinking about doing is rather than having a user guide, we were thinking it might be useful to have some videos that you could watch that actually walk you through how the new process goes. We were going to show how to use the new search. We were going to show how to manage your account, how to work on those bookmarks. And there's going to be information. I alluded to it just for a second in the presentation where if you're not an AACRAO member presently or in the past, you're going to have to set up a new AACRAO login. We were going to set up a video to walk through that process too. We want to make this as seamless as possible for everyone because there really are a whole lot of new features and we just want to be able to show you where to find them all. So not a specific how-to, but how-tos that you'll be able to access when you need them.
Great, thank you, Drew. Here's another question. This is from our friend Patrick. Hi, Patrick. I love the new Emergent news section. How will these news updates be added to the system? And are there specific news sources that are plugged into EDGE? Drew, would you like to maybe talk about how we anticipate the Emergent news section to work and maybe give a nod to the posting on the job board?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Melanie did mention, there's a posting on the job board. We're actually looking for individuals that are already familiar with what would be useful for credential evaluators to know. We're looking for people that are reading through news articles, and we're looking for someone that's going to help us to summarize and digest some of this. We're looking for a content curator. So this is going to be one of your colleagues that is specifically going out and looking for the things that are most timely and most important, and we'll have them working with us every day. So if you're interested in something like this, we're looking for probably 2 hours of your time every day, but go on over to jobs.acro.org and you'll be able to see information for how you can collaborate with us directly with AACRAO EDGE.
I'd also like to just add that in addition to the support person, which is something that we're adding in order to ensure that we have sort of a constant feed, we have not yet found a great news source that will absolutely just plug in. And we also want to do a little bit of curating and make sure that the news that we're putting, that feeds into EDGE is actually really directly relevant to the work that you're doing. We also have staff here at AACRAO who will also be feeding on a regular basis. We all consume international news, education news daily. And so we have 5 professional staff who all read news and will also be adding as they hear of pieces and consume news sources. But in order to ensure that we have a really steady flow, we're also going to be investing in some outside help as well. All right, it looks like I have a little bit more time. Let's see. Some of these are very, very specific. Question about when the cost will go up. I will say that once we launch, when you renew, when your subscription is up, that is when the new cost structure will go. And so we anticipate launching in June. So I would say the folks who need to renew in July and beyond, that is when the cost will go up. And so there's another question that says, we're already paid through December. Will we get a bill for the remainder of year with the increase? No, you won't have to pay until you renew your subscription. So if you renewed in the first part of the year, then you will get the new features of EDGE under the old subscription rate. And you'll be able to add new people to your membership for no cost. You probably only have 2 now, and you'll be able to add another 8. So that will work, I think, quite nicely for people. And another question relating to that is, if you've already paid for a 3rd user, how will that work? Well, that 3rd user will be rolled into your subscription, and you will no longer have to pay for a 3rd user. As the future. Some questions about when it's going to be available. It's going to be available this month. I don't have an exact date yet because we are finalizing the user guide videos and finalizing some last data load and tweaking of some of the product. But it is nearly ready, and we expect that before the end of the month, it will roll out. And so we will be communicating with all of our EDGE users. If, as Drew mentioned earlier, if you are an AACRAO member already, you will be able to log into the AACRAO website and your AACRAO account, and that will just seamlessly enter you right into EDGE when you navigate to EDGE. If you are not yet an AACRAO member, then you will have to create a free AACRAO account, and we'll send you an email that will tell you how to do that. You'll create a free account and you'll be right in. So we're excited. I think, let's see, there's one last question. Will there be a forum of some type for subscribers to reach out to other users if they want to share documents or information? And I will say that within the platform, we don't have a forum planned, but we do already have an international activities listserv. And I would encourage you to use that listserv to share those. There was also another question around sample documents, and if you had sample documents that you wanted to share with us or get involved in that. And I would say if you want to get involved in the sample document project, email us at edge@acro.org and we can talk with you about that further. And we are out of time. And so I'm going to say thank you very much to Drew and to Jasmine for joining us. I'd like to indicate that you can stay informed at AACRAO by joining the EDGE mailing list. That's on the website. Join the International Activities Listserv, which is under Helpful Listservs in the Resources section of the AACRAO website, or subscribe to the AACRAO Connect newsletter, which is also under Resources, and you can subscribe. Next slide. Save the date. We have a lot of webinars coming up. We have on June 10th an Academic Records and Transcript Practice Guide. June 19th, we have Demystifying the Cambridge International Transcript in the US. On June 24th, we have the Ups and Downs of Organizational Change Management. And on July 8th, we're talking about measuring and reporting student progress and success. We have a very full webinar schedule to serve your needs. We hope to see you at one upcoming. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.